Co-chairs, Richard and Crystal, colleagues at the head table, our sister Juliet Davy, and we express our solidarity with you in this time of your struggle against victimization. Comrade Vincent Cabrera, representative of the JTUM and also chairman of my own party, the MSJ, senior counsel Ramesh Maraj, fighter for rights and the human rights of our people, and of course the Honorable Keith Rowley, leader of the PNM and leader of the opposition, all the other sisters and brothers of the Roundtable, St. James, good evening. Good evening, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. The Roundtable was convened last year to deal and discuss with the abomination that was Section 34. But we also were convened to deal with issues of governance and democracy in general. We didn't only talk the talk when it came to Section 34, we walked and we marched and we demonstrated and we said with a loud voice that Section 34 was a manifestation of the worst form of governance in this country, and those who are responsible, not only Volney, but the AG as well, had to go. We have not forgotten that demand. It's coming back tonight again. We said as well in that massive demonstration that we would continue the process, and we have done many things since then. We wrote to His Excellency the President, calling on him to use his power under Section 81 of the Constitution, and he did so. And in the weeks to come, we'll be reporting on that in more detail. But tonight, we're going to focus on other issues, because we said then last year that it was only a matter of time, given this government's track record of disregard for the Constitution and the law, of this government's total throwing into the bamboo of good governance and of democracy, that it was only a matter of time that another issue would hit us like a tsunami. And so said, so done. So we have had in the last few weeks not simply carnival and old mass, which we are all accustomed to in the lead up to Ash Wednesday. We had the old mass, but of a very serious and dangerous nature, of this so-called new flying squad. And then on the heels of that, having the defense force, if they get their way, which they will not, having the defense force given the powers of the police officers. And other speakers have dealt very, very eloquently with that. But this issue, sisters and brothers, citizens of the flying squad, of the defense force being given powers of the police, this issue goes to the heart of what governance and government is about. Because this is about the safety and security, indeed, the very life and well-being of every single citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. And that is why we are here tonight. We are here as a round table, cutting across party lines, cutting across lines of representation of trade unions and NGOs and so on, cutting across gender and race and religion. We're here tonight as a round table because the safety and security, the life and well-being of every single citizen stands above every single division that may exist in Trinidad and Tobago. This is really about the national interest, and the national interest trumps self-interest. The national interest trumps party and trade union interest. The national interest is what has us here tonight. And I want to congratulate you, and you need to congratulate yourself for coming out here in the national interest of Trinidad and Tobago. Sisters and brothers, last year, June 22nd, Jack Warner was given the Ministry of National Security. And from day one, we said that that was an inappropriate and wrong choice. And in fact, on the 27th of June, 5 days, not even a week, the thing flew up in his head. Went down to Debe, instructed Defense Force to break down the highway route camp. And from then, we said that he should be removed as Minister of National Security. 5th of July, he has a meeting with a representative of a foreign government, US ambassador, and says that to the media that I have just met with the US ambassador, and I have asked her, even though I have no cabinet approval, that's what Jack Warner said, I have asked her to have the United States use its naval capacity to patrol the territorial waters of Trinidad and Tobago. Giving up the whole issue of sovereignty by a minister of the government meeting with an ambassador of another country and saying to that ambassador, come in and patrol our territorial waters, but you know I don't have cabinet approval yet. Then, 26th of September, on national television, in a program that we don't know who yet paid for it, on all the television stations, waves a copy of the Trinidad Express newspaper, refers to a front page or an article in that newspaper, and says, we know who wrote it, we know where you're living, we know who your friends are, and so on. Now, if that was rump shop talk, nobody would take it on. But this is the Minister of National Security who, as Ramesh Senior Counsel has said quite clearly, could then command or instruct or inveigle, legally or otherwise, arms of the security forces to go and look for that journalist. That is the kind of megalomania that exists in the cabinet of this country. And then on the 9th of October, he says, I'm going to tell the police not to report crime statistics. Remember that? And the acting commissioner of police had to say, hold on, we go still report the crime statistics. But you see, that was in an attempt to create not simply misinformation, but to manipulate public opinion. And I'll come back to that in a while. And then we have this flying squad. I didn't hear all of the news tonight because I was on my way here. But I understand that members of the so-called new flying squad had a press conference today. And were giving chapter and verse. Now, already there are incontrovertible facts in the public domain. The owner of the premises said, these people were there in my premises. Vehicles were leased for use. There's an email trail of evidence. Meetings were held, and no denial has been given to the fact that meetings were held. The MSJ's position is very clear, you know. If there's criminal wrongdoing, then the Commissioner of Police is responsible for investigating criminal wrongdoing. And after consultation with the DPP, bringing criminal charges. If there is political malfeasance, that is not for the Commissioner of Police. Political malfeasance is for the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And if she's not sure of the facts, then it's not for her to ask the Commissioner of Police to do a fact-finding mission for her. The Commissioner of Police is not there to get facts for the Prime Minister. The Commissioner of Police is responsible for investigating and dealing with crime. If facts are required for political action, set up a one-person Commissioner of Inquiry, give that Commissioner 2 weeks, because you don't have to investigate the marriage and the parish. Investigate that and report back in 2 weeks, and then take action. That is what should happen. But you know, when it came to Section 34, we wanted an independent investigation of that. That's why the Roundtable went to the President and said, Excellency, try and get all the facts. But we also told the President that you can't expect to get the facts from the Prime Minister doing her own investigation, because herself can't investigate herself. Prime Minister rejected that, and it was public domain. She told the President, we've already given you all the information. But in the case of the Commissioner of Police, the flying squad matter, she now says, I can't investigate that. Somebody else has to do so. You see the hypocrisy and the deception that takes place. But you see, our position is very simple. Jack Warner must go! Must go! Right now. Right now. Let me also make the point that the Prime Minister better do a fact-finding investigation into the report that was in the front page of the Sunday Guardian. I don't have any facts, and I'm not about to say anything factual that I don't know tonight. Suffice it to say, that is now an issue in the public domain. A very serious allegation has been made, and the Prime Minister has a responsibility for superintending the affairs of her cabinet. And therefore, in the interest of transparency and accountability, must tell the nation what the facts are on this matter. And I will say no more. But Jack is not the only one in terms of the flying squad issue and all the other matters that I referred to, with the attack on the media and the going to the US ambassador and so on and so on. And of course, remember his attack on President Richards when he said that he was a PNM president, and then telling persons to resign who are appointed independently by the president. All of those things. He's inappropriate. But he's not the only one. The Attorney General cannot bring a piece of legislation to the House of Representatives, and I went to the Parliament website today and I downloaded it and printed it. Nowhere in this, which was laid in the House, is there any reference to it requiring a special majority. No, I was in the Senate for a while. I see Senator Dale Singh there and so on. When a bill is brought, at the very beginning, before it is laid, it makes reference to the need for it to require a special majority, and may specify the majority that is required. An Attorney General has to be grossly either inefficient, incompetent, or negligent to bring legislation without that special majority, and then afterwards, in speaking, saying, well, you know, this law requires. But That is not criminal law, that is just basic law. An understanding of the Constitution, and he claims to be a constitutional lawyer. You see, all of this are just knee-jerk reactions. So they want to do away with trial by jury, just so. They want to say no bail for particular offenses, just so. All of this are knee-jerk responses to the crisis, which is a real crisis, of crime and violence in our society. But you see, all of that is to try to show that they're doing something about it. Let me just say that none of these things of themselves will solve the problem of crime and violence. And I want to come back to that, because repression is never the answer to a social crisis in a society. Repression is never the answer. But they want to manipulate people's fear of violence being done against them and to their property, and manipulate that fear to implement a particular agenda. And then we will wake up 6 months or 2 years from now and suddenly realize that we're living in jail, as the late Penguin sang so eloquently. So they manipulate public opinion. Even you know those little polls that do on television during the news? There are people in government offices and ministries and other paid political people who send in text messages, you know, to influence the outcome of the poll. So much do they want to manipulate information. I want one of them to tell me a lie, because I heard that with my own ears in a meeting. So let them tell me a lie. Let one of them threaten to sue me, and I will call names as to who and which minister is doing that. I've already, the defense issue has been very well dealt with by senior counsel. I wouldn't say anything more, except to say, and I've been a trade unionist for 36 years, that when a trade union like the Police Social and Welfare Association gets its members to sign a petition to say they do not want to have members of the defense force given powers of police officers, you know the thing is serious. You know it is serious. And you know what the government has done? Because we already have joint police-army patrols. By bringing this piece of legislation, they have actually fomented a certain conflict between the police officers and members of the defense force. Which conflict and the loss of morale that could result from both those important arms of the state will not be in the interest of public citizens and the interest of the safety and security of citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. They, in their mad rush to do things, they don't think about the implications or the consequences thereof. I just want to say one other thing about the defense force. The police officers, in the exercise of their duties, are told that they can only use reasonable force. Am I not so, counsel? Defense force members don't have the concept of reasonable force in their training, because they're dealing with a military external threat. And you can't ask a foreign army that's coming in to read them the rights. So the culture and practice, notwithstanding what Guy Griffith wrote in 2 pages or 1 page today, the culture, practice, and training of the defense force is very different, and we must keep them separate and apart. I also agree that this proposed bill would in fact create a permanent state of emergency, except that we don't have a curfew and other rights officially are enshrined, but the defense force acting is one element of a state of emergency. And the 2-year sunset clause, don't let them fool you with that, because 2 years' time is general elections, assuming it runs to 2015. So by the time the sunset clause runs out, they wouldn't be there, but the damage that would be done in those 2 years will be irreversible. I want to say as well that the politicizing of national security is something that must not be tolerated by any government in Trinidad and Tobago, past, present, or future. Citizens must not tolerate it. If there were things that the PNM did when it was in office in politicizing, that was wrong. But two wrongs do not make a right. And this government has gone further than anyone in the past to politicize the institutions and offices of national security in this country. Just look at who has gone and who has replaced them. Whether there were proper processes of appointment and interviews and so on, and you will see that it is being politicized. And that is because this government has an agenda to win elections and control office, to control all the institutions of national life in order to pursue personal power and personal wealth. Corruption takes many forms. And I want to say, sisters and brothers, that in terms of corruption, we have to ask, as King Austin sang, who is to guard the guards? Can't be Jack, can't be Alan, they can't guard the guards. The late Lloyd Best, in a famous quip, Lloyd was sometimes hard to read, but sometimes he had very good phrases. The late Lloyd Best once said, when somebody asked him about corruption in a society, he said, you know, you can't have 40 thieves without an Alibaba. Can't have 40 thieves without Alibaba. Because if the person at the top does not do something about the corruption below, then that person at the top is just as guilty as the person below. That's why I walked. One of the reasons. That's one of the reasons why I walked. So, what we need, sisters and brothers, is new governance. We need good governance. We need strong public procurement legislation. We need party finance regulations and laws. We must ensure that crime and violence is dealt with not simply by more repressive legislation, but by listening, by those in authority, listening and understanding what is happening on the ground, and by organizing our society collectively to go forward. But it has to be led by people who have the moral authority so to do. We have to have governance where there is no discrimination, no politicization of the institutions of state, of government, the state enterprises, the services, the teaching, public service. None of them must be politicized. We must have fairness, equity, and social justice for all. We must know, every single citizen must know, that if there's $650 million in dirty money circulating, that those responsible will be brought to justice just as quickly and given harsher penalties than the person who steals 2 tins of condensed milk in our society. Justice must be blind and must be fair. That is what we must have. We must ensure that the institutions responsible for national security are well equipped and dealt with, and Dr. Rowley did a lot to speak to that issue. I therefore want to close now, sisters and brothers, by saying the following. To the senators of our republic, take a stand. To the senators, take a stand in defense of democracy and good governance, and ensure that that bill does not see the light of day. To all my fellow citizens, I say, take a stand. Take a stand. Do not simply grumble in the corner. Take a stand, because the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. And finally, sisters and brothers, remember, people power can trump the power of those in office. Forward ever, backward never, forward ever, backward never. I thank you.